Caroline. How are you today?
Hi, Fran. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
To start, could you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do here at Draeger, and about your family?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Caroline Tansley. I'm the UK sales manager for the recurring revenue side of the business, specifically the hospital consumables and accessories and the service contract renewals.
Can you tell us a bit about your family?
Yeah, so I've been married for 23 years and to my husband Ian, and we have a child together called Alice, who's now 22, but she was born at 26 weeks gestation, so 2002.
So when you first learned your little one will be arriving earlier, what was that like for you? How did you feel in those moments?
So I first realised that there were problems. I had a pregnancy that was what you might call just normal up until 21 weeks. And then I realised that things were starting to happen that shouldn't be happening. And through complete miracle, the NHS managed to delay my labour to 26 weeks. And to be honest, during that time, it was just shock, really, and disbelief, and just praying to get to at least 24 weeks, because obviously I knew that that was when the pregnancy would become viable, and that if Alice was born, then she might stand a chance.
And what happened next?
We got to 24 weeks. I was in hospital for that entire time, and at around about 25 and a half weeks, I went into labour. They delayed it for another couple of days, so I had steroid injections, etc., because they knew that they couldn't delay it anymore. And Alice was born at £1.11 in the middle of the night, breech, and resuscitated there and then, and whisked away.
Wow, that was tough for sure.
Yeah.
So looking back, are there any special moments or little victories that really stand out in your journey?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's loads, because obviously when something like that happens, it becomes a day-to-day or even an hour-by-hour situation. So the early stuff was, sort of getting over through the first night, getting to see her properly for the first time. When her eyes opened, because she was born, they were fused shut. So after I think about 6 days, her eyes opened, and that's when you started to really sort of see her for her own person. She sort of became more baby-like and less, because she was just like a tiny little bird that had fallen out of a nest, really. So that was pretty monumental. And then the whole roller coaster of ventilator, CPAP, and then feeding tubes, and learning when she learned how to associate sucking with being fed through a tube at the same time. That was pretty special, because of course when they're born so early, they don't have that sucking reflex. So it was really nice when she started to suck when we were feeding her through a tube. Bottle feeding, just loads of really tiny things.
And what happened next?
So we were in hospital with Alice for we came out a week after her due date. So she was born on the 5th of August and she came home on the 18th of November, but she was actually due on the 11th of November. So for that whole time, up to pretty much what would have been her full term, everything that I would have done for her if she'd just stayed inside me, we did for her. And then she came home oxygen dependent as well, which in itself was really, really difficult. But there were towards the later stages when we were able to take her out of the incubator and give her cuddles and things, there were real big highlights where my husband was able to do skin to skin with her, and of course he'd gone back to work and everything. It wasn't the plan that he wouldn't be part of those early days, but it just, circumstances meant that he had to go back to work. So in the opportunities where he was able to get her out of the incubator and really bond with her, that was really, really special. So we tried to do quite a lot of that when she was well enough. And she came home and eventually she caught up, but it took a long time. So we were working on a corrected age in terms of the milestones like walking, talking, etc. So that was slightly delayed, but now you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say helped you the most during these tough times?
Support from family. I think initially that's really difficult because they're not really involved, because obviously the environment in a neonatal unit is not, you can't just come in and start picking up babies, and it's just not like that. So that's really, really difficult. But I became very, very aware that they needed to have a bond with Alice too. So I wanted to include everybody, and that really, really helped, having the physical and the emotional support of my parents and my sister and family. So understanding that other parents are also going through this and looking at stories that other families had gone through that had had a really positive outcome really gave me hope. And I think after we'd got Alice off a ventilator for a good degree of time and then onto CPAP and then progressed onto sort of like she had like an oxygen hood on, then I started to really have hope, and that's what really helped me, is just that hope and not allowing my mind to spiral into worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm. Finally, why did you feel it was important to share your story today?
Just general awareness, really. Well, awareness that there is help and support for families that go through this. I think it's much more common than people think. So as a family, we talk about prematurity quite a bit because it's part of what we've always lived with. And Alice has found that, when she went to university, lots of her friends have also born premature. So I think it's quite common. So I think it's really important for there to be awareness of that and a wider support, but also awareness for topics like how it impacts on the wider family and other, dads and aunties and uncles, etc. And then, of course, we need to progress. We need the technology that progresses this, because without companies like Draeger, Alice just wouldn't be here. It is as simple as that, and the expertise of the NHS and all the nurses and the team, of course. And then finally, just to celebrate Alice and the journey that she's come on. I love to tell her story because it's a really happy one.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Caroline.
Thank you.